Hey guys, welcome to Poor Man Mods. Today we're going to be installing a pair of these Corbeau RRS seats into my 2002 Lexus IS300 because it's not a 3-liter anymore. So I got a pair of these Corbeau seats because I just absolutely hate the factory seats in this car. For me, there's like no bolstering. I slide around even just daily driving. I don't think they're comfortable. And it does have heated seats, and I'm not sure if it's a problem with just my car or if it's an IS300 thing, but they don't work that good at all. You can turn them on and barely feel them. And I used to have a 2008 Lexus ISF, and my plan for this car has been pretty much to make it a mini ISF. So I swapped a V8 into it, and now I want it to feel on the inside a little bit like that ISF did. And to do that, the factory seats just have to go. So I got these Corbeau seats with the integrated seat heaters installed, and I got them installed by Corbeau. I opted not to install it myself. Being that these seats are vinyl, I didn't want to risk damaging it, and it was just a lot easier to have them install the seat heaters. But we do have to wire them up. I'm going to do my best to try to hook it up to the factory wiring, just to keep it more, just to make it look more like a OEM install. I do have a pair of bolt-in brackets for this car, and I have a pair of universal sliders. I did not get Corbeau branded sliders for this, and the main reason I went with the Corbeau RRS is when you look at it, it is noticeably thinner on the bottom here than a lot of other aftermarket seats and some Corbeaus. And I'm not a tall guy. I'm only 5'9", 5'10", and when I've autocrossed this car with a helmet on, I have to tilt my head because there's not enough headroom. And it must just be a Toyota thing because I ran into the same problem in the ISF and my Mark III Supra, and even my 4Runner. It's just not much headroom in these cars. So I went with the thinnest seat that I could get in a reclining style. I did not want a fixed back for this car because it is much more of a street and daily driver car. I just want a little bit of added sportiness, added comfort, and better heated seats. So my advice when shopping for aftermarket seats is try to find the thinnest bottom possible. Now, depending on what you're doing with the car, try to get the thinnest seat possible that you like and that you can afford. And if it's too low for you, you can always find ways to make it taller. But if you go out and spend $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 on seats that are too high, you can't really fix that unless you really chop up the car. So try to find the thinnest seat you can. I went with these RRS. They seem pretty thin on the bottom. So yeah, that's enough for me talking. So let's go. These things can just be a pain to get off. I've had them off a few times, so they're a little worn out, but if it's your first time, they can be a pain. All right, in regards to the wiring for the seat heater, this is a harness that came with the seats, and we're gonna be using the factory wiring and switches to power this. So you can see right here is our seat heating element for the driver's side. It's got a red and a green wire for power and a white and black. B in Toyota's wiring is black, so that's a white wire with a black stripe. That's our power and ground. And since this circuit is already fused, we do not need the fuse that comes with this kit. So pretty much what I'm gonna do is coil this whole bundle under the seat, but I'm gonna cut this about there, because we don't need that fuse. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm not sure if we can bypass this switch. I tried using my power probe to figure out if this is needed to complete the circuit or not, because there's this controller attached to the seat. This is the controller for the seat heater. So I don't think I'm going to eliminate this high and low switch. I'm just gonna pretty much leave this coiled up under the seat, and I'll probably just leave it on high. And then when I don't push the seat heater button in the car, it will not be energizing the circuit, but when I do press it, it'll be already on the high setting. And the reason I'm doing it this way, for one, it should just be a lot easier. All we're gonna have to do is connect 2 wires, but also I don't think there's a place in the car that I think these switches would look good. I'm just gonna try to use the factory switch, and I'll leave this coiled up under the seat. Chances are, if I leave it on high, I'll be totally happy with it, and I won't wanna turn it down. So here is our connector that plugged into the seat. There are 4 wires going into this connector. The white wire is the power wire for the power seat, so we don't need to worry about that. This red and green wire is the power for our heater, the seat heater. The white wire with the black stripe is the ground for the entire power seat, so we'll need that. And this is for the airbag. Don't need to worry about that, don't need to cut anything. The only thing we're going to cut and modify here is we're going to cut this white wire with a black stripe and the red wire with a green stripe and connect that to our harness. Everything else we'll just let be. Right now it's seeing ground, and when I hit the heated seat button up there, it should send power. So that's the ground tone. Perfect. Sweet. Okay, and it should just be that easy for the wiring for this. We have the power and ground being supplied to our Corbeau seat. And now with this connector being unplugged, we don't really need to do anything because these pins will not be energized. If you really want to heat shrink or take these off, you can, but there is absolutely no need to since there's no connection. So we're just going to leave this be. We'll leave the airbag be. When we put the Corbeau seat in here, this will simply plug into that controller underneath the seat, and we should have heated seats. Perfect. Since I'm using universal sliders on a Corbeau seat, these are not made to work with the seat. I decided to cheap out and get Amazon sliders. And the spacing for the bolt holes on the seat is wider than the bolt holes on the actual slider. So what I had to do was just make a simple bracket on both sides that puts another bolt hole a little bit closer. So now I can attach the slider down bottom. Don't have to get it super tight yet, then I can bring this up here. Slide that down. And I did have to also notch out this part so it could avoid the bolt head here. And now I can put a bolt and nut through here, and then my sliders will be attached to the seat. The next part's really fun, and that's making this universal slide handle work with the seat. And as you can see, it's a lot wider than the pins that it has to rest on. So you pretty much have to bend this, manipulate it any way that you can to make it fit into these pins. We pretty much just need to bend this in a lot. So let's see if I can do that.
6.5 hours later.
Okay, got this thing bent up. I pretty much just did it by hand, and it was not easy to make it look good and symmetrical, but it does function. So you have to make sure that this is at least a little bit wider than the brackets because it only stays on these pins with spring tension. So just manipulate a little bit at a time to make it narrower or wider, however your seat is. But it does need to be wider so that when you bend it in, it goes on these pins and it's held in with spring tension. And now if you're sitting in the car and you pull up on this, it will release the sliding mechanism. So cool, now that part's done. Now we can attempt to attach this to our bracket that's made for the car, but not for these. Hopefully it works. Of course. The first bolt was not fun doing this alone. Looks like we will be able to line up these bottom slots, which is nice, so hopefully we won't have to modify anything. And it is important to note that this bracket is for the driver's side. Right here is where we will be attaching the seat belt. And this is the lever for the driver's side, so you want this on the left side. This seat is directional, so there's only this lever on the left side of one seat and then the right side of the other. So being that this is on the left, this is the driver's seat for in America. And then on the opposite side, you have the bracket for the seatbelt. These bolts in the bottom of the slider will have to pull up on this lever and slide it down to where it sticks out past the seat, and then we can get the nut and bolt through that way. And then once you center this bracket up as good as you can tighten down your hardware. All right, got the factory seatbelt off of the factory seat. And since we're doing aftermarket seats, I mean, if you really want to wire up the seatbelt circuit, you can, but you guys can do what you want, but I'm just going to cut this off so the car always thinks that the seatbelt is connected, but you can do what you want. And what I had to do with the bolt and nut from the seat, because the bolt for the seatbelt has a very nice shoulder on it. It's got this really nice shoulder on it that fits nicely in the seatbelt bracket. But unfortunately, it's like a M11 thread, and I don't have any fasteners that, I don't have any nuts that will go onto this bolt. So I had to cut off the welded nut portion of the bracket for the seat so I could get my nut. So I had to chop up the factory seat, which isn't really a big deal, but if you were banking on selling the factory seats and doing this, if you do what I just did, you're probably not going to be able to sell the seats. So just be mindful of that. You're going to have to get creative about this if you want to sell those seats. But like I said, this is a very special bolt. It's like an M11 thread, but it has a perfect shoulder so you can turn this. So do what you will about that, but I guess I'm not going to be selling my factory seats. Oh well. Perfect. So it's tightened down, it's nice and secure, it does not wiggle or wobble, but it still allows you to turn this so you can properly connect the seatbelt. Cool. So now this bad boy is ready to go into the car. For shits and giggles, I want to weigh the stock seats so I can see what kind of weight savings we're going to get. These stock seats are pretty heavy. 54 pounds for the stock driver seat. And then with everything installed, the Corbeaus are 40 pounds. Cool. Got the seats installed, and now we have that stupid flashing airbag light. Two different ways you could go about doing this to get that light to turn off. You could either go under the seat and the harness for the airbag, you could cut the wires and short them together, and that might work. But I don't want to touch the airbag circuit. What I'm going to do is just remove the cluster and take out that bulb. Once you get the cluster out, locate that bulb down there in the corner and remove it. I have been waiting to put aftermarket seats in this car for so many years now. I am so happy with the result. I could be a little bit happier, honestly, though, but overall, I am still super pleased. With this setup here, the Corbeau RRS seats, the universal sliders, and the brackets that I use, which I'll try to link to everything that I use in the description down below. But everything that I put together in this car, the headroom is exactly the same as it was. So it's a good thing it's not worse, but I wish it was a little bit lower. And if you wanted to get into some cutting and welding, it looks like you might be able to get about another 3/4 inch or so of a drop if you modify the bracket that I use to attach the seat to the car. There's a little bit of manipulation that can happen there, but I'm not sure if I'm going to go through that hassle or not. As for the seatbelt light and everything, if you just don't connect anything regarding the seatbelt when you put these seats in, you'll be fine. You won't have a light on the dash. But for the airbag, you're either going to have to cut and just basically short together the wires for the airbag, or just take the bulb out like I did in the cluster. And I feel like that's the better option since you're not permanently modifying anything. But other than that, super happy with the way the seats look and feel, and the seat heaters are much better than factory. I just left them on the high setting and they work totally fine. They're not too hot, and I'm just gonna leave it as is with the Corbeau switch just under the seat, and I can use the factory push button in the center console to activate the seat heaters, and it works totally fine, and I'm absolutely loving it. So as for a price on all this, the seats ran me just under $1,300. The sliders, I think, were like 50 or 60 bucks. And then the brackets were, I don't know, another 150 or so. So that's about how much you can expect to spend if you're gonna buy all this. And if you buy the Corbeau sliders, you'll probably end up spending more money. But I just went with the universal ones, and it's working pretty good. Another important thing to note, when I had to add that like 2-inch bracket to the bottom of the seat to mount the slider, the way I positioned it on the front holes of the seat, that effectively pushed the slider back and moved the seat forward. So if you're taller than me, I'm 5'10", 5'9". If you're taller than me, you might want to put that bracket on the rear of the seat, and that would effectively push the seat back and give you a little bit more leg room. But overall, super happy with it, and I topped it off with a pair of nice like quilted VIP style looking floor liners, much better than the factory floor mats. I think they look really, really good. So yeah, this car is coming together, and it's pretty much, you know, turning into a mini ISF. You know, these seats actually do remind me a lot of how the factory ISF seats felt. And yeah, once again, super happy with it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.